As you listen to me right now, thousands of children have already been turned into weapons of mass destruction. Some are subjected to bizarre crossbreeding experiments, while many more are left to die on the altars of ritual sacrifices. This world we live in is sick. It's evil, and I tell you, if you know how dark it is, you would prefer to live in your basement, locked away from these demons forever. It's what I've done for a couple of years now. I have no more business dealing with this trauma, but as I watched other people come here to tell their side of the story, I soon figured that I would be a fool if I didn't speak up. My mama didn't raise no coward, and I am not afraid of death like the others. I'm already a dead man inside of me. But I must warn you, the things you're about to hear are not for weak people. They are real classified information that are not supposed to see the light of day, so you better be ready. And if you're hearing this now, don't count on hearing it again. Subscribe now. Share this video before they wipe this from your feed. They don't like stories like mine staying up too long. Before I ended up in that house, I was just trying to survive. I came here with nothing. No family, no papers, no promise. Back home, I had dreams. Not big ones, but enough. I was in medical school. I wanted to help people, maybe stitch something broken back together. But war doesn't care about plans. It tears through everything, and you run or you die. When I got to this country, I thought I could rebuild. I didn't expect it to be easy. But I didn't expect it to be this cruel either. No one tells you how quiet hunger gets when it becomes normal. No one tells you how a brilliant student becomes a man sweeping parking lots just to see tomorrow. So when a friend reached out about a job, any job, I was eager to do it. I was later told it was a babysitting job, even though I had no experience, but I knew I would scale through with my medical experience. And since I was just a kid, I was ready to resume and get off the street. The address he sent didn't look real. It was the kind of place you only see in magazines. Tall gates, polished stone, a driveway longer than the block I lived on. And when I showed up, they were already expecting me. I didn't meet her that day, just her staff. The child, they told me, was recovering from something. They didn't say what though, and I didn't care much at the time. I was handed a schedule, a key card, and pointed to the East Wing. When I first saw the boy, he didn't speak. He didn't smile. He just watched. His eyes didn't look like a child's. They looked like someone who had seen too much, but couldn't tell it, or wasn't allowed to. I tried to keep it simple. Feed him, clean up, keep the lights on. But that house, it breathed. Every hallway echoed too long. Every door whispered when it closed. Some rooms were locked. Not with a key, but with silence. You don't ask about those rooms. On the third night, I found him sitting in the middle of the hallway with no toys, no lights. Just him, barefoot, tracing circles on the floor with his finger. And then he asked me something. He just whispered, "Did it hurt when they took your blood? Did you scream like the other kids?" I froze. That was the first time I heard him speak to me, and that wasn't what I expected from a 5-year-old kid. That's when I knew something was wrong. Not just with him, but with everything. They didn't hire me because I was good. They hired me because I had no voice. Because if I disappeared, no one would ask where I went. And in that moment, I realized the kid wasn't recovering from a regular sickness. But I couldn't place what was wrong just yet. At first, I thought it would be an easy job. I wake up, feed the kid, keep him company, and go to sleep. That's all they said. But from the second I stepped into that place, something felt wrong. The kind that creeps up under your skin and just waits. The boy didn't always talk much, but was very observant, and he bled most of the time. He would often nosebleed, and from his mouth. That was when my medical instinct kicked in. He'd cough, and red would pour out the side of his mouth like his body was rejecting something. I remember one time, he wiped his chin, looked down at the blood, and whispered, "It's not supposed to be this color yet." That line haunts me. They kept him on this weird diet. No real food, no snacks, nothing you'd give a recovering child. Just clear packets of thick gel, color-coded liquids, and something that looked like powder milk but smelled like metal. I checked the fridge one day. Not a single label had a brand name. Just codes. And then there were the private medical sessions. 2 people would show up every few days, never speaking to me. They wore full scrubs, face shields, and gloves. I'd hear machines humming behind the door. Once, I caught a glimpse through the crack, wires, clamps, and blue lights. I'm not a doctor anymore, but I've seen enough to know that wasn't medicine. That was testing. One night, I saw him staring at the wall, whispering to himself, over and over. I leaned closer to hear what he was saying. "And I swear to you," he said, "they want to see if I can carry it, but it's too heavy." Carry what? That's when it started clicking. The bruises. The blackouts. The sudden nosebleeds after every session. Whatever they put inside that child, it wasn't meant to heal him. It was meant to grow. And I still hear that question sometimes. The one he asked me as I tucked him into bed. At first, I thought the boy's condition was genetic, maybe a blood disorder or something autoimmune. But I was wrong. So wrong. And the more time I spent with him, the more I realized this child wasn't healing from something. He was becoming something. He didn't have a birth certificate anywhere in the files they gave me. No medications. No prescriptions. Just one folder with a barcode. Inside were photos, not of him, but of other children. Ones that looked like him, but not quite. Their faces were warped, skin too pale, eyes too dark. Some with hair that grew in patterns that didn't feel human. And one photo I will never forget. A child with no mouth, just a smooth stretch of skin where lips should have been. But the eyes looked just like his. I couldn't breathe when I saw that. And one day, while changing his bed sheets, I found a bruise running from his lower back up to his neck. It wasn't just a bruise, it pulsed, like something underneath was moving. I asked him if it hurt. He didn't answer. Just looked me dead in the eye and said, "They said the first one didn't survive. But I'm stronger. I can hold more parts. More parts." My hands shook for hours. Then I began noticing something else. His drawings. He never used crayons like most kids. Only charcoal. Every image was black, gray, and deep red. He drew himself in cages. Wires running from his body to other tiny figures. Some human, some not. One picture showed him lying down, while masked figures stood around him, holding tubes filled with strange symbols. Above them, scribbled in what looked like his own dried blood, were the words, "We are many, but we look like one." I don't know what they put inside him. I don't even know if is the right word anymore. Some nights, his body would shake uncontrollably. He'd call out in languages I didn't recognize. I tried recording it once. The audio file was completely silent, as if the device couldn't pick it up. But I heard it. And when I tried to play it back, the screen on my phone flickered and shut off. I thought I was losing my mind. But it got worse. The boy once whispered to me after a session, "You shouldn't drink the water here. It's not made for people like you." That night, I poured myself a glass from the kitchen. Metallic, bitter. The bottom of the glass had a faint, oily film floating across it like skin. I dumped it. I didn't sleep at all. But the real moment, the one that still keeps me up even now, came one morning when I asked him what he wanted to be when he grew up. He looked confused for a second, then tilted his head and said, "Grow up." But they said I'm done. He said it like it was normal, like he knew his purpose had already been fulfilled, like he wasn't supposed to live past this stage. Whatever he was, whatever they were trying to turn him into, it was already here. And I was just the fool they let into the room to clean up the mess. Because nobody would believe an immigrant. Because if I ever told, they could just call me crazy. Say I broke down. Say I imagined it. But I didn't, I saw it. And I think now they wanted me to see. They needed someone to test the line between horror and denial. To see how close they could get to truth before someone broke. And I'm close, so close. Because the last thing he said to me, before falling asleep with his body twitching under the blankets, was this: "It's okay if I bleed. That means it's growing like they said it would." And I swear on everything, he smiled when he said that. A soft, calm smile like he was proud. I'm gonna be a monster that can beat the bad guys, and Mama would be so proud of me. He continued. I was beyond stunned. The boy referred to Oprah as his mom, but I know beyond a doubt that no good mother would turn her child into a monster. And if you're still listening to this, maybe you understand why I needed to tell someone. I don't care what they do to me after this. I already lost everything. But if this video disappears tomorrow and nobody said a word, then maybe we deserve what's coming. Save this. Share it. Not for me, but for the children who have no voice to tell their side of the story. By the time the next medical van arrived, I had stopped pretending. The job no longer mattered. I wasn't there to babysit or to tidy up. I was there to find out what they were hiding. Something about the boy. His decline, the way his body trembled after each visit, had crossed a line I couldn't ignore. They assumed I was too simple to notice, that I'd keep my head down like a good immigrant. But I was paying attention. For weeks, I observed everything. I tracked their movements, counted the seconds between each shift change, memorized the sound of each set of footsteps. I knew the van always pulled in at 3:47 a.m. I knew the boy's worst nights followed those visits. He'd sleep for almost 24 hours straight, waking only to bleed through his bedsheets or mutter in tongues no child should know. There was one hallway I was never allowed near. No signs, no keypad, no sound. Just a long, unmarked stretch of corridor behind a matte, gray door. The medics always disappeared behind it. So I waited. Earlier that evening, I'd cut the feed to the East Wing hallway cameras. Said it was a fuse issue. They didn't question it. I kept my face calm, my tone light. But inside, I was vibrating with fear. When the van pulled in, I followed it through the darkness. As the last medic passed through the automatic door, I slipped in behind them. 15 seconds. That was all I had before it shut tight again. Inside, the temperature dropped. The air felt processed, over-sanitized, not clean in a healthy way, sterile in a way that suggested contamination, had been scrubbed away again and again. What I saw next is hard to put into words. There were beds, maybe 24, child-sized, each one fitted with thick straps. Some of the children were breathing. Some weren't. Most were hooked up to machines, fluids being drained or pumped into them. But the liquid wasn't blood. It was something darker, sluggish, more like oil. The walls were lined with displays, charts, monitors, bone density scans, diagrams that looked vaguely human but off. Eyes that were just black sockets, rib cages that bent outward, organs placed where they shouldn't be. One screen showed a body in motion, twitching slightly, but its limbs were too long and its proportions unnatural. That's when I noticed the faces. Some of the children were identical. Not just similar, identical. Same shape, same scar, same mole on the left cheek. I counted at least 3 versions of what looked like the same boy, each with a slight variation. One of them had gills fluttering along his ribs. Another had thin lines etched along his skull, almost like surgical guides. It was like someone was testing different versions, running drafts of a child. I backed away, dizzy. The buzzing in my ears got louder. My stomach flipped. And then someone spoke. "Hey, what are you doing here?" I turned. It was one of the medics who probably forgot to pick up something. But based on my calculations, no one was supposed to be here. I must have stood there clueless for a few seconds, but blood rushed through my body the moment I saw him move his hand toward his belt, to his radio. Maybe something worse. I reacted before I could think. I grabbed a metal tray off a nearby cart and swung it as hard as I could. The sound of it hitting his jaw is still with me. He collapsed immediately. I stood over him, breathing hard. And then, when he twitched, I hit him again and again, until he stopped. I'm not proud to say this, but I did what I did to survive. Blood pooled around his head. I remember thinking his pulse was still there. Faint, maybe. I wasn't even sure. That's when something behind me caught my eye. Movement inside a large vertical tank. A body floated inside. Half-grown, hairless, skin mottled in gray. And as I stared, it blinked, slowly, deliberately. I know what it looked like. I know how this sounds. But it blinked. They'll say I broke down. That I imagined it. That I lost control and snapped. Maybe that's what they want people to believe. Maybe that's what this whole setup is for. So someone like me, with no status and no voice, becomes easy to erase. But I know what I saw. And if you had stood in that room, if you'd seen what they were building beneath that house, you wouldn't be the same either. For days, I waited for the fallout. I expected sirens, a knock at my door. At the very least, a change in the routine. But nothing happened. The staff acted like nothing was wrong. The cameras in the hallway came back 2 mornings later, as if someone had quietly reset them. No questions were asked. No medic was reported missing. No police. No extra patrol. And yet I never saw him again. He wasn't dead. I'm sure of it. The way I left him, bloodied, maybe unconscious, but breathing. I checked. I know what I saw. But his body was gone. Someone had been there after me, cleared the mess, and scrubbed the entire room like it never happened. Like I had never been there. And that's what unsettled me most. Not the silence, but the precision. They had protocols for this. I was just one more variable they cleaned around. But even if they erased the medic, they couldn't erase the boy. He changed. His drawings got darker. He wouldn't eat. He started talking to someone who wasn't in the room, staring at corners, whispering with lips barely moving. And then the physical changes began. The first thing I noticed was the back of his head. A swelling at first, then it hardened. I asked the house doctor about it, pretending to be concerned. He smiled and said it was a fluid pocket from normal development. But it wasn't fluid. I touched it once, gently, while the boy was asleep, and it moved. His skin turned pale. Not sickly pale, transparent. At night, under certain lights, I could see faint blue veins pulsing across his arms. And then came the screaming. God, the screaming. He'd wake up thrashing violently, crying, but not like a child, like something inside him was trying to break out. He'd claw at his own neck. One night, he tore open his pillow and began eating the foam. I held him down crying, begging him to stop. But he didn't hear me. He wasn't there anymore. Whatever they put in him, it wasn't staying still. I wanted to call someone, tell someone. But who do you tell when you've already broken every line of trust? When you're undocumented, uninsured, and labeled expendable by people with power? Then one evening, it all stopped. A black van pulled into the compound. Different license plates, different men. No uniforms. They didn't speak to anyone. Didn't log in. They just walked straight into the house, past the kitchen, past me, into the boy's room. He didn't cry. He didn't scream. He smiled when he saw them. I watched from the hallway as they strapped him onto a stretcher and wheeled him away like cargo. His arms were stiff, his mouth slightly open. Something was pulsing beneath the skin of his neck. One of the new medics noticed me staring and gave me a nod, like I'd done my part. The next morning, a note was left on the kitchen counter. Typed, no signature. Patient suffered a fatal stroke at 7:43 p.m. Do not attempt further contact. Compensation enclosed. A thick envelope was taped to the back, full of crisp $100 bills. I didn't believe the stroke story, not for a second. He was either terminated because the project failed, or move to a deeper site where the final phase would begin, where he wouldn't need to be, oh boy, anymore, where the monster would finally have room to grow. That same night, my passport was returned to me, along with a one-way ticket and a reminder that overstaying in this country was no longer advised. And I understood what that meant, crystal clear. They didn't want me to vanish. They wanted me to leave on my own, quietly, gratefully, so they could tell themselves the loose ends were handled cleanly. But I didn't burn this story for revenge. I'm sharing it because I know that boy never had a chance to speak. And if what they're doing in that house spreads, if it's not just him, then silence will be the death of us all. And just like that, my life took a dark turn. I didn't leave because I wanted to. I left because death was the only thing left waiting for me in that house. And maybe I would have welcomed it if I wasn't already living through something worse. The whole situation was never about a medical explanation. It was about silence, control. And that bag of money came with an unspoken direction. Go home, disappear. But what do you do when home doesn't exist anymore? When your real country is just smoke and fire, and the people you loved are already ghosts. So I stayed. I didn't know why at first. Maybe I still don't. I wandered station to station, tree to tree, wherever the shadows stayed long enough for me to crawl into them. Sleep was dangerous, but staying awake was worse. And then the dreams started. No, not dreams. Episodes. Attacks. I'd wake up soaked in sweat, arms aching from clawing at the walls. Sometimes I screamed in a language I hadn't spoken since I was a child. Other times I saw faces, skinless, silent. Once, I woke up gagging like something had been forced down my throat. Something that didn't want to leave. I tried to go back, tried to retrace the path to that mansion. But every time I got close, something shifted. The road bent the wrong way. A gate that was once there wasn't anymore. One time I reached the exact coordinates I had memorized and stood in the middle of an empty field. No house, no driveway, no boy. It was like someone had wiped that part of the world clean, or maybe wiped me. But the memories, they didn't leave. And now they rot inside me like open wounds that never got stitched shut. I sleep in a basement now. It's abandoned. A crumbling building with no locks on the doors and no name on the front. The mattress here is soaked in mildew. The walls sweat when it rains. I write when I can, eat when I remember and can afford it, and when the fever breaks. I record what I know, what I think I still remember. That's the only reason you're hearing this now. Because I know I can't take this to my grave. Whatever they made that boy into, whatever they're still doing behind sealed walls and smiling foundations, someone had to live long enough to say something. Maybe I was the mistake that slipped through. Maybe you're the one who wasn't supposed to hear this. But now you have. So the story doesn't belong to me anymore. It belongs to you. And I'm glad for the opportunity I have right now. You have a sane mind compared to me. You can help thousands of children who go missing around the world. The children who were never accounted for or ever saw their loved ones again. Just like this video so that the world can see it and spread the truth far across. Subscribe to help keep this channel. Stay strong against their propagandas. I know this might sound like something out of a James Bond movie, but it's not. But I tell you for a fact, most of the movies we see are orchestrated and a sneak peek into the real world behind the screen. They are real, but they package it in entertainment. It's not. Hollywood is the devil's screen. Don't take everything you are shown as some creative ideas of a movie. Be observant. They are showing you the things the powerful men do behind closed doors. They want to show us enough violence, enough to make our mind numb to the realities of what they do. If you think this is just conspiracy, close the tab. Go back to your shows. But if you've got kids, if you've got a sister, a brother, or a family who you love so much, then you know why this can't stay buried. Share it. Before someone you love walks into the same trap, subscribe and like this video so that many more people can see this and be aware of the world we live in.